We were discussing the precedent and certain articles were remaining. So the parliament may make such provisions as it thinks fit, giving a wide power to the parliament in case of any contingency or in case of any situation. What will happen is, to discharge his functions, president needs certain provisions. There might be certain provisions missing as per these laws. So what the parliament can do, they can simply create new laws to grant him powers or procedures for discharge of his duties. Okay. All disputes arising out of or in connection with the election of president or VP shall be inquired and decided by court, Supreme Court. Okay. Election of president and VP is conducted by the Election Commission of India, but all these matters of disputes will be decided by the Supreme Court, whose decision shall be final. When we will be discussing the Election Commission, we will also discuss how and what are the judicial developments related to it. Okay. See, I have already told you, if his VP or president's election is declared void, acts done by them remain same to same. They will not be null and void. They will not be invalidated because I have already told you. Okay. Because whatever they do, whatever president does is through council of ministers on their advice. So he has no discretion of his own, and whatever uh, power the vice president is having, that is only chairman of Rajya Sabha. So he is doing everything in the scrutiny of the house of the that Rajya Sabha. So eventually everything is done by majority. So nothing has to be removed. Election of person as president or vice president shall not be called in question on ground of exercise by power. Done. That is already discussed. President shall have the power to grant pardons. Okay. There are 3 to 4 cases. Let's see. For court martial is specifically related to the armed forces. Okay. For these armed forces, the sentences by court martial shall be or can be pardoned, remit, commute, suspend by president, not the governor. Okay. Punishment or sentence for an offence against law relating to a matter which executive power of the union extends. Okay. For the union matters, the powers where union governments or union executives power extends. In these cases, he can pardon, reprieve, remit, etc. This one is important. In case of death sentence, pardoning power only lies with the president. But in case of death sentence, other powers also lies with governor. Okay. See, nothing in subclause C of clause 1 shall affect the power to suspend, not pardon. Only suspend, remit, commute a sentence of death exercisable by governor. Okay. Clear? Why this is specifically written over here? Because completely pardon the death sentence can only be done by president, but other instances can be done by governor also. Those are suspension of that, remission or commuting. Okay. Also this, the court martial power, whatever the power the constitution is giving upon the president, this does not mean that these powers will be taken away from the superior officers. Okay. Any officer of the armed forces of the union. This simply means that they can also do that same in their process. And I would like to tell you this, that these pardoning powers of the president or the powers to remit, commute or suspend is not a judicial power. It is a parallel way. It has nothing to do with judiciary or court martial tribunal or any tribunal. Okay. This power is an alternative parallel route. It happens sometimes. Forgive me for sometimes clearly mispronouncing things. Okay. So what you will remember is, this is not a judicial power. This is just an executive power. This is totally different from the judiciary. And it is not done to say that judiciary has done some error. This is just to give the president the supreme authority in India, that he has the power to do certain things in good faith. Okay. It is not against judiciary. It is parallel to the judiciary. Now we will see the 73rd. Clause 1. Subject to provisions of this constitution, executive power of the union. This is for describing where the union executive will exercise its power, up till where their power extends. Okay. Matters which the parliament has power to make. We will discuss what are the matters on which parliament can make laws. Union executive power also extends to certain areas exercisable by the government of India by virtue of any treaty or agreement. This is for international relations. Provided that executive power referred to in such clause shall not save or express parliament state to matters with how to make laws. This clearly means that parliament, or actually the union executive, will not interfere in those matters where the state legislature has powers to make, expressively provided. Expressly provided. In certain cases, we will understand that, I think that is Article 249, that the Parliament's power can also extend to states. Okay, these are for discussions for later, because we are having an overview. We will see all this in the upcoming articles when and wherever required. Okay, this is for pre-constitution laws that existing certain at that time. Those who were commanding certain authority, they will continue until the constitution or the parliament simply provides. Okay. In constitution, these things are present till now. They should have been removed. I do not know why they are still here, because even after so many years of independence, why the pre-constitutional arrangement is still present in the constitution. I think most of the continuation philosophy should have been removed, as in case no one of the ICS or no one of those authorities still exists. So according to me, there is no need for this, but I do not personally know everything. So I would have to check this. And if you know the answer, you can comment why still we have certain clauses like this in parliament everywhere for continuation of pre-constitutional laws. Okay. Council of Ministers. Okay. Parliamentary democracy starts over here. A responsible government is a good government. Okay. Parliamentary democracy is all about responsibility. So, there shall be a council of ministers. At its head, at its head is the prime minister. He is known as first among the equals. Okay, he is known as the first among the equals. But what you will understand, he is not among the equals. Nobody is equal. He is the most superior in this council of ministers. Council of ministers existence depend on the PM. Whenever he wants, he can make them go away. He can make anybody resign through the president. Okay, he is known as first among the equals, but nobody is equal to the PM. This is prime ministerial form of government. Many political critics mention this form of government as prime ministerial, because every power has been concentrated in the PM. But there will be certain instances where PM has to abide by the law. Everything has to be done in written form by COM, Council of Ministers, and to be presented to the President. For example, in case of emergency provisions, now things have to be done in written form, signed by all the members of the Council of Ministers. Okay, so we will discuss Article 74. First, we will see the text. There shall be a Council of Ministers with Prime Minister at the head to aid and advise The president who shall, keep in mind this word, president who shall, president is bound, legally bound, in the exercise of his functions, act accordance with such advice. President can do nothing of his own. Even in cases where there is discretion, that discretion is very vague. Okay, and those discretion does not mean that president has. I think I have written certain thing over here. I'll show you. President's satisfaction is not subjective, but shall be objective. Even in case where there is slight ability for the president to move here and there and do certain thing by his discretion, as in case of like appointing a new PM, in case the PM dies suddenly or he is removed and nobody is able to claim majority. In these case also, he is bound to remain objective. He has to use logics and constitutionalism. Whom I am appointing? Will he be able to secure majority or not? Am I doing any biasedness favor or not? So judiciary is always keeping a watch. You can also say this as in India, Parliament is not sovereign, but up to certain extent, judiciary is supreme. Certain extent, always an exception. But whatever we have taken from the USA's constitutional independence of judiciary, that is almost true in India also. Judiciary is kind of independent in every respect. Okay. Also, in case of their own judges, what the word used is elevation. They are completely doing it as per their laws. Nobody can check whatever is going on there. Collegium system. In certain ways, this is really good because it keeps the politics away from this. But in certain ways, this is bad because it keeps watch of the common people away also. Okay, so advice cannot be inquired in any court, but judicial development is that in SR Bomai case 1994, the Supreme Court of India clearly stated that advice cannot be inquired, but the material or the facts on which the advice was made is subject to judicial review. This is a very important factor point, that the relation between the Council of Ministers and the President is quite protected by law, that advice cannot be inquired by any court, yet the judicial review by the Supreme Court or the High Court is available over here in case the fact or material which were presented for making such advice was vague, was biased or not. That can be checked by the judiciary. Okay. Also, this means it has been edited. This means it has been edited. I'm leaving this task for you. Stop the video and see this, what it means. I've explained you how to read this. If you do not know, go to the previous videos. Okay. Let's see the second one. Provided that president may require counsel. Okay, this is for the consideration of advice. This was added later. 44th Amendment. This is the protection or safety clause. But generally this does not keep the government from doing what it wish. It can only delay. Okay, but that delay is also good sometimes. This is a power to the president because delay can also result. See, advice cannot be questioned, but the material or the fact behind this advice can be questioned. So it is also under judicial review. Nothing in India done by Parliament uh, can't be away from the watch of judiciary. Okay, if any question arises, is there anything which the Parliament can do and judiciary cannot encroach or cannot look into? I don't think so. If any matter exists, there exist. The internal proceedings, the internal procedures of the houses is completely up to them. Okay, the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President and the other ministers shall be appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. First among the equals, but nobody is his equal. I have not created any slide. It means there were no constitutional developments related to it. See, there are, but I have not written. Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President. Okay. Whom will President appoint? It is not his pleasure. Okay. He has to appoint certain person who claims the majority in Lok Sabha election, or if somebody is not able to claim the clearest majority, the group which is able to form, that group will elect its leader, and President is bound to elect that person. And also that person has to prove its majority on the floor of the house. Okay. Governments are not formed by just numbers said by the leaders. They have to prove it on the floor of the house. See, this is a protection clause. It is added, shall not be exceed 15%. Why this was added? There was a time when coalition governments were formed in India, I think in the post 90s era. So what happened is, to keep the parties pleased, the PM had to appoint many offices to multiple ministers. Number of ministries went high. Number of ministers of state, deputy ministers kept on increasing. So eventually there had to be a cap on this 15%. Okay. And why House of the People? In India, ministers can be from Rajya Sabha also, but why only House of People? Comment down if you know the answer. 1B. 10 schedule. What is this? Anti-defection law. Who is disqualified under this schedule? 10th schedule anti-defection law is also disqualified to be appointed as minister. Okay. Okay. Clear. Those who cannot be a member, how can he be a minister? Except for the cases in which he is neither a member but he is not disqualified. He can be appointed for 6 months. Okay. Also, we will see a judicial development in